Today's podcast is brought to you by a company who we have been using for years and takes up significant shelf space inside of our own kitchen. Biosteel Sports Nutrition.
It was a product created out of necessity 8 years ago and is trusted by athletes like Connor McDavid, Tyler Seguin, Brooke Henderson, Rosie MacLennan, and Andrew Wiggins.
They're really a leader in sports drinks for everyone from professional athletes to everyday champions.
Understand something, guys. Nothing worth ever having in this world comes easy.
Do what these champions doing if you're going to be a champion.
You control your outcome.
Who am I?
I'm a champion.
What up, champions, and welcome back to a brand new Biosteel breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Adrian, with my co-host,
Sylvie.
Thrilled to have you back. Once again, breaking down another popular nutrition topic. This is actually going to be a two-part episode, so you'll check back next week for the second half. It's just too big. It's too big to do in one. And we were talking about this before we started recording, how some of these topics it's hard to know where to start and where to finish because they're so comprehensive, and it's a holistic approach, which you talk about all the time. And it's almost like telling a portion of history. Like, where do you start with history? Because everything that happened contributes to what's going on now and everything in the future. And your health is like that. So this week, what are we talking about?
I'm talking about dietary fats.
What fats? There's been an interesting trend with fats. So fats were the devil for a long period of time, and that's something that's been talked about on this podcast and a couple of other episodes. And now there's a bit of a transition in the community where we're starting to understand that maybe they're not as bad as we thought, and in fact, they may be good for us.
Yeah, well, if we look at fats just generally, they're essential for life. We actually need to take in fats from our diet. So if we look at the 3 macronutrients, so protein, carbohydrates, and fats, we need protein, and we've broken that down in the last episode on collagen, but we need protein. It's essential for growth and repair of our tissues, and fat we also need. So fats in general have a ton of benefits. So
what are the benefits to fats then?
They can be anti-inflammatory. They help to transport fat-soluble vitamins into our cells. So those are A, D, E, and K. I remember that from school, that A, D, E, and K. We had to go over it.
Did you have a funny thing for it?
That was it. That's
okay.
all. I wish I could remember what I remembered.
Like all day elephant's kiteboard?
That could be it.
Just made that up. You're all welcome.
They can improve cardiovascular health as well, and like we talked about in the keto episode, they're a primary energy source as well.
So what are the types of fats? And I know we're only going to break down 2 of them today.
Yeah, so we're going to go through monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats.
Okay.
But next week we're going to talk about saturated fats, trans fats, and
we're doing polyunsaturated and monounsaturated today?
Yes.
Okay. I'm here to learn. I actually don't know very much about this, which is awesome. So what are dietary fats?
So first we have our monounsaturated fats. So they are mono because they only have one double bond in their structure. So when we look at fatty acids, they only have one double bond holding them together.
Okay.
So they're usually liquid at room temperature. They have a ton of health benefits. So they, especially for like our blood vessels and our liver, they can help us to lose weight. They're chemically stable for the most part, unless they're heated at really high temperatures. They can be altered in their benefits. So some examples of some monounsaturated fats are avocados, avocado oil, macadamia nuts, wild salmon, and beef has a lot of monounsaturated as well. They also have saturated fat, but one of the most popular ones is extra virgin olive oil, and they have a ton of benefits for our brain as well. So if we're looking at monounsaturated fats and you want to stay sharp, put extra virgin olive oil on everything.
And that's very typical of Mediterranean cultures, right?
Totally.
And they
have obviously wild salmon or wild fish as well, primarily in their diet. A lot of olives, a lot of olive oil. They also use, some cheese like feta and that type of thing
Right.
as well, which is a saturated fat, which we're going to talk about next week. But fats have a mixture of these like monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated. It's typically never just a one fat. Exactly. It's like a mixture of them. Exactly.
Okay, so that's monounsaturated.
Yes.
Then what is the second half of that? What are the polyunsaturated fats?
So polyunsaturated fats have gotten a lot of popularity because of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. So there are essential fatty acids. We need to take them in from our diets. So they become very popular because they kind of work in conjunction together, and it's a balance of taking in omega-3s and omega-6s. One of the biggest issues to date is we have a lot more omega-6s than we do omega-3s in our diet typically, if we're looking at general North America. And so this can become a major problem because it can cause inflammation as opposed to help to decrease inflammation in our bodies. So omega-6s are not always bad, but we're essentially just getting too much of them in our food system. So, and not in the right ways. So again, both of these essential fatty acids, omega-3s and omega-6s, occur naturally in food. But what has happened with omega-6s is that a lot of it has been altered. So it's typically in a lot of grain seed oils that we're seeing. So soybean oil, corn, canola, sunflower, safflower are like the big ones that are showing up a lot in our food system. And what's happened is they're very delicate and very vulnerable to oxidation. And so oxidation is when oxygen reacts chemically with our molecules, and it can create these damaged molecules called free radicals, which can cause a lot of inflammation in our body. So essentially they're taking the natural fat and altering it, and they're typically very highly processed. Yeah. Sorry.
Those oils that you were talking about, like sunflower oil, canola oil, soybean, those are being used in other food products as well?
Yes. So there's a couple of like major culprits. Like commercial salad dressings is a big one. You'll see a lot of it. You'll see them in essentially any like packaged or processed foods. There'll be a lot of these types of oils. A lot of restaurants use these types of oils because it's essentially a cheap oil. And so again, they've been altered, and so omega-6s have two pathways. They can either be anti-inflammatory, they can be inflammatory in our system. So we're supposed to get sort of a balance of these two, omega-3 and omega-6s, and typically we're getting way more omega-6s, which is leading to more inflammation. So it's going sort of more in that pathway due to the fact that they're not naturally occurring, and they're highly processed.
And I know there's two terms that at least I know I hear all the time when I pick up the bottle at the health food store. I see on the cover, there's always a ratio.
Yes.
What's the ratio?
So if you're looking at omega-3 supplements in particular, and I will talk about omega-3s because I just went on about omega-6s, but so omega-3s are sort of the again, the most popular fat out there right now, aside from medium chain triglycerides, which we'll talk about next week. But they're really popular, and they should be because we need them in high abundance, and they almost are always anti-inflammatory in our bodies. So omega-3s will occur in like wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, krill, and in some algae as well. That's the big one. And then there's plant-based sources as well, which I'll talk about in a second. But there's two types of essentially these fatty acids. So that we have EPA and DHA. And so EPA is basically a whole body anti-inflammatory. And so, like I was saying with athletes and anyone looking to decrease inflammation in their body, typically EPA is something that you'd want to focus on. And then DHA is most abundant in our brains. So in terms of like even like high dosage for neurodegenerative issues, it's been very helpful. So, even if it's like dementia, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, anything like that, fish oil has been associated. The DHA form of it is associated with an improvement in brain health. Yeah, and so then we also have ALA, which is found in our plant-based omega-3s. So we're talking about flax oil, we're talking about flax seeds, walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds. They have a certain amount of ALA. The thing with ALA is it has to be converted to EPA and DHA in our bodies in order to be able to use it. And so that's sort of a whole other conversation, but essentially we have to have really good like detoxification and conversion of that in order for it to be beneficial.
Okay.
So
there is an option for a plant source.
Yes.
But our body works better if it has it in the original form.
Well, yes, and like there's a lot of factors with that in terms of like whether you're taking something in and actually able to absorb and assimilate it. But yeah, generally speaking, ALA has to be converted. So these fish oil or any supplement is typically from either salmon or krill or from a fish-based source.
Is easier.
It is easier.
We're generalizing a little bit, but okay. That's the first two.
That's the first two.
Guys, 2-part episode. Make sure you check back next week to find out the second half of fat and why it's so important for you. As always, head over to biosteel.com. Excuse me. Check out all the products they have there. Use the code word
Champ Lifestyle, capital C, capital L.
Get yourself a saving and fill up your cart with some amazing substances to power your day. And that's it. Anything else?
That's it.
See you next Friday.